information with you. So when you go home, alhamdulillah, I'm pretty sure everybody here is intelligent enough to know what is right and what is wrong in a relationship. But you can share it with others. You can share it with the youth who are brought up in this environment. My name is Abdullah Nuri. Some of you may know me, some of you don't. I've been a police officer with the City of Toronto for, this is my 11th year. And I've gone to many calls for service where the couple that have called for help, they don't necessarily know, once police get there, what police procedures are. They call and then they're lost. They don't know what the next step is. So I'm going to briefly touch on, I didn't know that I was allotted 20 minutes. This presentation is actually longer than that. It's supposed to be longer than 20 minutes. So I will touch on what the definition of domestic violence is as per Toronto Police Service, our procedures. Then I'm going to go into different forms of domestic violence, warning signs, causes, effects, cycles, what the prevention is, and the most important of all of those topics, all of those points, is the role of police service, role of the police, Toronto Police Service. What do we do when we get to a call for service? So definition, oops, sorry, I think, can you go back one slide? Okay, so definition of what is domestic violence. It's very important that we know that any physical, sexual, psychological, or attempted between persons involved in intimate relationship. Intimate is used in a very vague way here. It's not intimate meaning physical intimacy. It could be emotional intimacy. Two people could believe, one of the persons could believe that they're involved in an intimate relationship with the other, and all of a sudden it becomes a domestic situation as soon as we're called. And we treat it completely different than two guys fighting, for instance. So, intimate relationship including assault, murder, sexual assault, threatening harassment, intimidation, unlawful interference with personal liberty, or any other criminal offenses, offenses under the Statutes of Family Law Act, and it does not include child abuse. Just to make it somewhat more interesting, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. I'll address the question right then. So that way, I'm not just talking and you're all closing off, hopefully. So, covering that, if you look at all that, it says, it's very detailed as to what it covers. And it basically covers two people in a relationship. As soon as two people in a relationship, they call for service, it becomes domestic, like I said earlier. So, forms of domestic violence. What are the different forms? I'll cruise through these points, and then, like I said, I'm going to focus more on the last point, which is the role of police service. I think that is the most important aspect that our community should know. Physical, obviously, and what does that include? It includes pushing, shoving, slapping, hitting. If two people are involved in an argument, it doesn't necessarily have to include any of that. If one person grabs onto the shirt of the other person, it can be interpreted as assault. A lot of people in our community don't know that. They say, I just held on to them. I did not assault them. So how could I didn't punch him or slap him. I just held on to their shirt. How is that assault? It is assault under the Canadian legal system, under that definition. Sexual. Coercing or attempted to coerce any sexual contact without consent. Whether you're married or not married, there has to be consent. There was actually a lot of talk about this some time ago in the media involving Islam and Muslims, and they say that under the Canadian legal system there has to be consent from both sides. As soon as there is an implied or outright verbalized decline of sex, it becomes sexual assault, even though you're married, even though you're in a married relationship. So you have to be very careful about that. Emotional. That's self-explanatory. Name-calling, insults, that's domestic again. Psychological, it kind of ties into the emotional part of it, blackmailing, playing mind games. Verbal, forms of emotional abusive behavior involving use of language. Economic, if you're holding back funds from one or the other partner, it could be interpreted as domestic violence. One more thing, domestic violence is not just man on woman. There's been a lot of instances where I've gone in and it's been the other way. So, just want to clarify that. Warning signs. What are some of the warning signs of domestic violence? When people, it's self-explanatory. I don't have to go through this again. Like I said, I want to focus more on, on the last 2 slides there. Warning signs of domestic violence, same thing, absence from school, low self-esteem. I think the 2 brothers before me, they touched on it, about kids from unstable relationships. They grow up with lack of self-esteem, with anger management issues, and the same can be said about people that are involved in an unstable relationship, in an abusive relationship. Self-blame, drug or alcohol. Alhamdulillah, I must say that our community, I haven't experienced too many of those where there's been drug or alcohol issues within the relationship. Maybe with the younger generation, it's becoming more prevalent, but with the established, more aged Afghans, it's not the case. Causes of domestic violence, history of aggressive behavior, history of abuse as a child, or witnessing parental abuse. I think the brothers earlier, they touched on it, that what your children witness is what they try to mimic later on in life. So if parents are involved in an abusive relationship, when the son grows up, if the father is abusive, the son believes that it's normal to be abusive towards your wife. If it's the mother who's being abusive, the daughter grows up believing that it's normal. It's not me. These are scientific facts. Like people have gathered, they've done studies on it, and they say that it's cyclical. If the parents go through this, kids automatically fall into the same cycle when they grow up. So, more causes of domestic violence. The one that, I don't know if it's there, maybe the next slide. The causes of domestic violence that I've witnessed in our community has been predominantly for 2 reasons. One is financial reasons. We're all new immigrants to the country. We all suffer from the same life experiences. We all have financial struggles. We all work hard to make ends meet. And I think that would have to be the biggest contributor to domestic violence in our community. The second one that I've noticed is mental illness. They do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. They've gone through horrific experiences through life, like we all have, going through all the migration from one country to another, witnessing war. It's not diagnosed, so they don't know how to deal with it, and it eventually turns into domestic violence. Those are the 2 reasons that I've noticed our community involved in domestic violence. Like I said, there's no drug or alcohol, not that many that I've encountered personally. So effects of domestic violence, physically, either couple, it's not just the offender, or the victim, a lot of times the offender themselves go through a lot of these not so much physical, but they go through emotional scarring themselves or psychological problems, depression. Long-term, it would be psychological, mental health issues, like I said. One of the more important points that I wanted to touch on, and I did earlier, was the effects that it has on children. Like it says on my slide, and the brother mentioned earlier, children who witness domestic violence may develop serious emotional, behavior, developmental, and academic problems. If you want your children to do well, if you want your children to have a solid, stable family of their own when they grow up, you need to provide them that environment for their kids. It's simple as that. If you don't have the ability to provide them that stability as children, they're not going to provide that for their kids. And chances are, when they grow up, they'll have issues. They'll have the same issues that the husband and wife have had, their parents had. They'll have the exact same issues. There'll be failures in life. A lot of times they'll go into drug abuse. They'll go into, psychological, mental issues. There's one instance I went to a call for service. There were 4 individuals trying to break into a car. This was at 2:30 in the morning. The 3 of the individuals were guys. They were not Afghans. They were probably in their mid-20s. There was one girl. She was about 15 years old. She was Afghan. She was high as a kite, and she had been drinking that night. 15 years old with mid-20-year-old 3 guys at 2:30 in the morning. That comes from unstable family life. That comes from parents not knowing where their kids are. That comes from parents not affording their kids that stability that they should have as kids. She's still a kid, 15 years old. That was one of the reasons why when my friend said, "Do you really want to talk about domestic violence?" I said, "Yeah, because that 15-year-old, I get to deal with her. Other members of the community don't get to deal with her. They don't see what kind of delinquency they have to go through, these kids are going through." I keep saying this, it's a disservice. If we put our hands in the sand and say, domestic violence does not exist in our country, or in our community, all we're doing is we're putting our heads in the sand. We're turning away from the problem that does exist, instead of, as a community, coming together and facing it, saying, yes, it does exist, we have a problem, let's work at it. Our community is not playing with it. When children's aid gets involved, a lot of times they ask, when you call the Toronto Children's Aid, they ask the child that's involved, is he Catholic, is he Jewish, or is he Native? They never ask if the child is Muslim. We, as a community, the Muslim community, we haven't even come together to create something like that, where when the kid, this is Canada, it happens, I'm going to go through that, why kids get taken away. When they get taken away, to provide them an environment, an Islamic environment, where their dietary needs are met, where the people that they're staying with are Islamic role models. So why is it that kids of other ethnicities or other religions are afforded that opportunity, yet Muslim kids aren't allowed? Right? So we should have something like that in place. What else we should have in place is Islamic marriage counseling. We have all these different organizations that come do presentations at our offices, and they convince us that we're providing this service to the community for various reasons, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's addiction. When police attend radio calls, and you establish what kind of call for service it is, if it's, let's say, mental health issues, can you please refer them to our organization? This is what we do, this is the service we're providing. when a Muslim husband and wife get into a fight, do we have Islamic marriage counseling services out there? Do we? Do you know? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know.
We don't know, right? And mashallah, this is a good mosque. This is a big mosque. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of people that are professionals. Yet we don't have the ability to provide that for the families that are going through the struggle, that need to be addressed, right? So I think that's a good idea, that if we come together and create something like that. Our education level has gone up. My generation, the generation after us, we're all attending universities, we're all educating ourselves here. We have Western education, hopefully we'll have Islamic values. So combine those two things, let's create something where if a family is going through hardships, a family is going through struggles that every family will go through, regardless of who you are, regardless of how much money you have, they'll go through those problems. Let's afford them that opportunity, so let's provide them that service that, you know, in case they go through struggles, that they have somebody to go to. So, my thing was I got carried away. The effects of domestic violence on children. Like I said, a strong, stable family will provide you a strong, stable family for your kids down the road, and a strong, stable community as a whole. Cycles of domestic violence, it's self-explanatory, I don't have to go through that. Let me go to what I really wanted to talk about. My time's running out. Okay, the role of a police officer. What do we do? We attend calls for service. Calls for service is any time I, as a police officer, attend to an incident. It's called call for service. How do we get notified? Generally, a call for service is generated as a result of people that are involved in a fight that call, right? Or witnesses reporting in. You don't even have to, like, husband and a wife get into an argument. They don't want to call the police. Next door neighbor hears it, they call the police. When we come in, we have to, because it's a domestic incident, we have to investigate. It's simple as that. The husband and wife have no choice but to talk to us. We will investigate the husband, the wife, or anybody else that was inside the house who witnessed the incident. It could be the kids. So, you don't even have to call the police. It could be next door neighbor or somebody who's just walking by. There's a lot of times when people are involved in an argument, I'm just driving to go get my coffee, and I stumble upon it. And I have to do something about it. I can't just turn a blind eye and continue driving because, you know, I'm running late for something else. If it appears to be domestic, it's given a priority 1, meaning it's the highest priority call. The reason why they do that is because domestic incidents are the most emotionally charged incidents that we investigate. Next to a person with a gun call, which is a live shooter out there shooting, and we have to go to it, the most dangerous situations that we go to are domestic calls. Because they're so emotionally charged that in instances there are times when husband or wife, they don't care at that point in time. They're so angry about, they think that their life has just fallen apart and it's shattered, that life to them doesn't mean anything. The husband, there's been so many instances where the husband has been disgruntled with the wife, or with the legal system, they go commit suicide and they take the kids with them. There's been so many instances where the wife has committed suicide and they take the kids with them. They jump in front of the train or jump off the bridge. So it's the most emotionally charged, most dangerous thing that we go to next to a person with a gun call. So that's how the calls for service get generated. Now, there's two different things when it involves domestic situations. One is a domestic incident, meaning we go there, regardless of how we got called to the scene, we get there, we talk to the husband, and he says, yes, A, B, and C happened. We talk to the wife, and she says, yes, A, B, and C happened. And we talk to any of the witnesses, including kids, if there's any kids. And they say, yes, A, B, and C happened. So there's no allegations of criminal behavior. We submit a report, and children aid gets notified, regardless of whether the kids were hurt in the process or not. If the kids were there that witnessed it, children's aid get notified automatically. And there's a file that's open, and they initiate their own investigation into it. So once the file is reported, or file is open, or report is submitted, then we do a follow-up investigation. The report gets assigned to an investigator, and the investigator calls the husband and the wife 2-3 days later, says, what happened? Just to make sure that the stories don't change. And if it's what happened today is what happened 3 days ago, they close the file and that's it. Domestic incident, it's done and over with. The second type, or the second option would be domestic violence. Once we go there, if we establish, based on the statements that we receive from the husband or the wife, or the kids, or the witnesses, that there was any sort of criminal behavior. When two men fight, two brothers fight, when two friends fight, we go there, the one brother says, this brother beat me up, and he's got physical scarring, you can see it, you can see the bruising, and the offending brother is there. Yet the victim brother says, you know what, even though he beat the crap out of me, I don't want police involved in it. We go, okay, have a good night, we go, our merry way. As soon as it involves husband and wife, as soon as one of the parties, the husband or the wife, says that he or she hit me, he or she pushed me, shoved me, like I said, even held on to me, automatically, 1, 2, at least one person gets arrested. There's been instances with the Afghan community where police have been called, we get there, and we grab a statement from the husband or the wife. One of them says, yes, a criminal act took place. Yes, I was assaulted. As soon as they say that, automatically the other person, the offender, gets arrested. That's the only part of the law where Toronto Police Service, members of the Toronto Police Service, they're ordered that they shall arrest. In all other cases, we can say, no, an arrest is not necessary in this case. In domestics, the person will get arrested. As soon as we put the cuffs on the person, the offender, the victim automatically turns and says, you know what, Brother Jean, I just wanted to scare you. I just wanted to scare her. It's too late. Because by then, we're not there to scare people. We're there to enforce the laws. And if you choose to live in this country, you have to abide by those laws. So once you make an utterance, which is the same as giving us a statement saying that he or she pushed me, he or she shoved me, whatever the criminal act is, automatically that person gets arrested. If there is a counter allegation that the other person hit me or shoved me or pushed me or whatever the criminal allegation is, there's been times where both people get arrested. Right? We try to minimize that, and we try to see who the dominant aggressor is, meaning who the, not necessarily the instigator is, but who the dominant aggressor is in that battle or in the domestic violence incident. So, once we've established that the person has been arrested, what happens? The person gets taken to the station, the person gets charged, and another important point I want to emphasize on this. On domestics, 99.9% of the times, that's the 100% of the times, when the person is charged, when the offender is charged, one of the first conditions they put on the offender is that you will not have any direct or indirect contact with the victim. Meaning, you cannot contact the victim through phone, through text message, through SMS, through the mosque, through your cousin, through your aunt, through your uncle. You cannot. As soon as the offender, initiates any sort of contact, if the offender has been released, granted, right? If the offender gets arrested, goes to court, 3 minutes? Okay, I'm wrapping up. If the offender is arrested and goes to court, most of the times we don't even release it from the station. They have to go to the bail hearing in front of a justice of the peace. A justice of the peace will then determine whether this person is eligible to be released. If the offender is released, will it harm the victim further? Will it bring further harm to the victim? And if the chances are low, then what they do is they say, okay, you will be released. You can go live in your own house till your court case is done with, but make sure you abide by these rules, A, B, C, D, and E.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just a question. Is it true that most of the times in a situation like this, the officer takes the female side of the story over the male? Is that true in the police community? Is that happening still?
The brother had a good question. He said, is it true that police usually take the side of the woman in these cases? When it comes to the police enforcing the law, we don't. We look at who the dominant aggressor is. The dominant aggressor we have to establish. We talk to the men, we talk to the women, we talk to any witnesses. And based on the evidence gathered, not just the statements, but the physical evidence gathered. Are there any injuries? The husband can say, you know what? I was sitting there watching TV, I wasn't doing anything, and she was just nagging, and then she walked by and hit me over the head with a pillow. Right? Is it wrong to do that?
Yes.
It is, right? But then, the husband gets up and punches the crap out of the wife, and she's got black and blue eyes. She started it. Right? Now, who's the dominant aggressor in this case? The husband. Now, who gets arrested? The husband. Right? So you have to look at it that way. Even though it's not necessarily, as guys, usually guys are a lot more physical. When it comes to anger management issues, guys become a lot, like they take it out physically. Whereas women don't. Women are more, you know what, I'm going to get you some other way. But not, they know that they, you know, physically just, it's natural. We're stronger beings. Right? So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, basically, whoever does most of the damage.
Yes. Whoever does the most of the damage gets arrested. So, the point that I wanted to make was, the important point, was when the police get there and once you make an utterance, meaning once we get there, in the heat of the moment, the husband or the wife says, oh, he hit me. All of a sudden, that becomes a statement. That becomes as good as a statement because you've uttered it in the heat of the moment. When we arrest the offender, you cannot turn back and say, I didn't mean it. I just wanted to scare him. We're not there to scare people. I keep saying this because every single time I go to those calls, people say, you know what, I just wanted to scare them. And once the person gets back to the bail release conditions, once the person gets released, the person is not allowed to contact the family. The person is not the family, but the victim. And when it comes to that, and if the children are harmed in any way, or if we think the environment that they're living in is not conducive to their well-being, the children get taken away either by us, or if we don't think that we don't have the grounds to maybe take the children away from the parents. If we call Children's Aid Society when it comes to domestic incidents when there is no allegations of criminality, here we definitely call. And once they come, they will open up a file, they will investigate, and once again, if they deem it necessary, they do take the kids away. So guess what? An argument or whatever it was that started off, however it was over money or whatever it was, just ended up causing a family to completely get obliterated. So before we get to this point, let's work on it as a community. If anybody comes up with any ideas, whether it's the Islamic Children's Aid or it's Islamic marriage counseling, and they want to help spread it with the Toronto Police Service or other police forces, I'll be more than glad to help you.
Thank you.
So if there's anybody else that can work on it, I'm available. My information is, where to go? There you go. There's my information. So, any questions? Yes? Oh, before I go any further, please, no questions about speeding tickets, parking tickets. It's all about this, okay? Yes? This young man has a question. He says, what if the one side is nagging and the other side punches him? Who's wrong? Oh, and the nagging person swears too. Well, they're both wrong. They're both wrong, right? But I'm pretty sure, growing up, your parents have taught you that you don't answer people's aggression, verbal aggression, with your fists, right? When people have issues with you and they're calling you names, they haven't escalated to the point where it's physical. So it's not right to punch them back. Okay? Let me get to the questions here. It says, if someone got into an accident and didn't call the police, what happens if the police find out? I said this was not a presentation on Highway Traffic Act. It was on domestic violence. In any case, just to answer your question, if there's actually a charge, either fail to report an accident or fail to remain at the scene of the accident. There's two charges. So if the police find out and you haven't complied with the regulation where you have to either stay at the scene of the accident or you have to go to a collision reporting center and report it. If you haven't done either of those, then you get charged automatically. I'll get to your question in 1 second. Let me just read the second question. One more question. I'll read this and I'll get to your question. Is that okay? Okay. The next question is, can you arrest someone who did not start the fight but was fighting for self-defense? No, we can't. Actually, you know what? No, let me correct that. The example that I gave earlier, where the one party attacks the other party with a pillow, right? When it comes to that incident, when I gave you the example, I said the wife hit the husband with the pillow. Even though the wife is the offending party initially, in self-defense, the husband can't get up and use excessive force to take revenge or to basically calm the situation down by punching the wife. You can't do that. It's against the law. So in that incident, self-defense will not apply. But in a case where you're getting robbed and you're putting up a fight so you don't get robbed, yeah, you're allowed to do that as a citizen. Okay, brother? In the back, what's your question?
Yes, brother. If in an accident, you think the police officer is not fair, or he's not doing his job in the way it should, so what choice do you have?
Okay. Your question is, it's a good question. As a lot of ethnic communities, they don't know their rights in Canada when it comes to the police. They think that once we get there as police officers, we're the end-all and be-all of everything. We can act in any way we want. We can, we basically write our own laws. We don't. We don't write the laws, we follow the laws, just like you, just like anybody else. But what you also have to understand is, if you firmly believe that a police officer has done something wrong, or, for instance, you get stopped for speeding, or you get investigated for whatever reason it is, and the officer is not acting in a professional, fair manner, if that is what you believe, there are steps you can take to go complain about it. What you can do is you can complain about a police officer at the station, whatever station that they're assigned to. You can ask them for that information, they have to give you that information. You can go to that station and complain to that officer there, lodge a complaint, but you have to go personally. You can't send somebody, a representative to do it, so you have to do it. If that is not, you're not happy with that, they investigate it fully. Just like, because we have detectives assigned to deal with internal complaints. If you don't have the opportunity to do that, there is an organization called, it's a civilian body. It's not related to the police. It's called OIPRD, Office of, I don't know what it stands for, but they're a civilian body oversight that deal with police complaints. They basically investigate the police. And if the station level complaints coordinator, or the detective who deals with complaints, or the member of OIPRD that's dealing with it, if they deem it that the officer conducted themselves not only in an unprofessional manner, but in a criminal manner, then that gets assigned to the Special Investigations Unit, which is an Ontario-wide, another civilian body, but they investigate police for criminal allegations. And they will lay charges against the police officers, if needed. I think that's the last of the questions. I'll answer your question later. Thank you, ma'am. That's my niece, by the way.
What we can do is perhaps, it looks like there's much other questions, maybe